What's up? How's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about the Garfield movie from 2024. Now, this was a movie that when it was announced, I was kind of apprehensive about from the jump just because of the casting. And now that I've seen it, I can say that this movie ended up being just about what I thought it might be. A decent movie, in my opinion. I would accept if someone said this was a good movie, but it's not a great movie. It's not an amazing movie. And as far as the casting issue I had going into this movie, I think that my opinion has remained the same. I think this is another movie that Chris Pratt has been miscast in. I like Chris Pratt as an actor, and I think that he can do really well in a voiceover role. He does great in the Lego Movie, but I think that having him cast as Garfield, not long after I already had an issue with him being cast as Mario, the amount of times I feel he's miscast these days is just growing. I know that it's common practice to recast characters whenever those characters are brought to the big screen in movie form, but did Chris Pratt sell this movie for anybody? Did anyone go out and see this movie because it starred Chris Pratt? Because as far as I'm concerned, that's the whole reason that you put big name actors in movies like this when they aren't the best choice for the role. You've got people who are voice actors that could do a better job, and yet you cast someone who's a big name. Chris Pratt is a big name. But again, did anyone go see this movie because it was Chris Pratt? Now, I'm not going to get too deep into my disappointment at how Hollywood is treating voice actors, because all these voice acting roles are just going to regular actors because they're big names and because, Hollywood seems to think that we go see movies specifically for these big name actors. Sometimes that's the case, not all the time. And it kind of just feels like the movie industry is looking over voice actors in favor of regular actors, which I'm not a big fan of for voiceover roles, but that's not what this video is about. Although I understand why you'd want to cast someone like Chris Pratt, Samuel L. Jackson, other big name actors to just, draw attention to this movie. In this particular instance, I don't think it was a good idea because you had Frank Welker and Greg Berger who wanted to return as Garfield and Odie respectively and just weren't asked. And they had to express their disappointment at not being asked after the fact. And I really think that casting them not only would have been a loyalty thing, but also it would have been something for Garfield fans to look forward to. People who had enjoyed those particular voices for those characters would have had something to look forward to going into this movie. And I think casting Chris Pratt, who doesn't even really put on a voice, it's just Chris Pratt's voice. He doesn't do anything with it. I think casting him to play Garfield just doesn't really fit. That's not the voice that we've known for so many years, and so it just feels a bit off. Now, full disclosure, my experience with Garfield and the world of Garfield is owning Garfield and Odie stuffed animals as a kid and watching the Garfield show. I haven't seen any of the other Garfield movies with Bill Murray or anything, so my experience with the character might be a lot less than a lot of other people's experience with the character, so you're just gonna have to let me know if what I'm saying makes sense, or if knowing more about the character and more about the story makes this movie better. Maybe it makes it worse. I don't know. You're gonna have to let me know how that changes anything. I did have fun watching this movie. It's not a bad movie by any means. There are some things that stick out to me, references from the Garfield show that I recognized. And the story of the movie itself I didn't think was a bad story. I did think it was a bit generic. Unfortunately, I think it is a story we have seen before. That was kind of my initial reaction when the movie was over. I feel like this is a combination of several different movies that I had already seen without really providing anything new. And maybe that's just me being a snob and overly critical, but that was kind of my immediate thought after the movie ended. But on the bright side, while I think the story was a little bit unoriginal, it also wasn't bad. In truth, while I do think this is a decent movie, I think it relies heavily on an already existing fan base. If this was a new story with new characters and all that jazz, I don't think this movie would have performed at the box office nearly as well, and that might sound like, yeah, duh. But I think for me, that's something that's going into my thought process about this movie. It financially was a success, but I think it's just that people were excited for a franchise that they grew up with, a franchise that they love, they have nostalgia for, and that kind of compensates for the lack of creativity in creating like a brand new, fresh thing. I feel like this was kind of a combination of things that have come before, rather than the movie presenting anything really new. And again, for a Garfield movie, that's not inherently a bad thing. Relying on nostalgia is important for something like this when everyone who's most excited for this movie is either a kid and is being introduced to Garfield or has grown up with Garfield in some form or fashion. And so I think that that nostalgia aspect and that familiarity isn't a bad thing, but the thing that sets it off, again, is that Garfield doesn't really feel like Garfield in the same way with it being Chris Pratt's voice. And unfortunately, I think that's what ruins it. Now, maybe I'm being dramatic, maybe I'm hung up on something that isn't really important in the grand scheme of the movie, but that's really my take on it. That's where I'm at with this movie. And so you're just gonna have to let me know if you agree or if I'm just, talking nonsense. But that's really all I've got to say for now about the Garfield movie from 2024. If you saw this movie in theaters or you saw it after the fact, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. If you haven't seen this movie, go check it out. Come back, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. But yeah, if you want to help me out here on YouTube, liking this video, commenting on this video, subscribing to the channel, or checking out some of my other videos, all help me grow the YouTube channel. I've done other animated movies, TV shows, I'm doing a little bit of gaming here and there. So if any of that sounds good to you, go check it out. And yeah, until next time. Bye.